Planet Reddit, today's story is...
My sister gave my children DNA tests at Christmas to prove that I was cheating on my husband, but she never expected the brutal truth that I revealed about her marriage. I am 36 years old, a mother of 2, and have been married for a decade. My son is 7 and my daughter is 9. For some strange reason, my younger sister Jenny, 32, has always insinuated that I cheat on my husband. I didn't understand why until recently, and I will explain that later. Over the years, she constantly made uncomfortable comments and jokes about my supposed infidelity. These comments made me nervous, and my husband was quite upset by the situation. Many times we considered cutting off contact with her, but my parents strongly opposed that idea. My parents are extremely concerned about their social image and how others perceive them. It's not something new. They've always been that way. We've had some pretty intense discussions about this. In the end, simply to avoid prolonged conflict, I ended up being polite to Jenny, but nothing beyond that. However, recently she crossed an unacceptable line, and in response I did too. We were celebrating the holidays at my parents' house. Jenny brought gifts for my children, and I also bought something for her daughter, as is our custom. The difference was that my gift was normal, while she bought ancestral DNA test kits for my children. She even insisted that they open them immediately upon receiving them. My children seemed excited, but I was deeply offended because, knowing her, I understood her intentions perfectly. My husband literally turned red with anger. He was so annoyed. I didn't even need to explain it explicitly. We all understood what she was implying, as she had mentioned it in 1,000 different ways on numerous occasions. This time I just exploded. I finally decided to talk about things I knew about his family, right in front of his daughter, my parents, and everyone else present. I told her that it was ironic that she accused me of being unfaithful, when in fact it was her husband who had had multiple affairs over the years. They have been together for 16 years, married for 9, much longer than my husband and I, as we have only been together for 13 years. As we all went to the same high school, I can testify firsthand that he was never loyal to my sister. I was older than both of them, but even so I knew all the rumors that were circulating. I knew for a fact that he was a complete scoundrel who flirted with any girl who crossed his path. That's how it was in high school, and over time, I thought it would get better, but it only got worse. I never told Jenny about this because in high school, when I tried to do so, we had a big argument. Our relationship was not the best anymore. She always seemed to feel a certain envy towards me and tried to annoy me constantly, which she often succeeded in doing. So we didn't get along very well, but even then I thought it was my responsibility to tell her. When I did, instead of believing me, she started arguing with me and said I was trying to ruin their relationship, accusing me of being jealous of her. When they were at university, he went to study business out of state and even tried to flirt with me on social media. At that point, I tried again to convince her that I was telling her the truth about what kind of person he was. But she still didn't believe me. After that, I basically gave up because she clearly preferred to live in a fantasy world where he was the most faithful person on the planet and had no eyes for anyone but her. If that's what she wanted to believe, it was fine with me because I was done trying to protect her. She could do whatever she wanted. Since then, even though I've heard from countless people that he's unfaithful, I've never bothered to tell her because I know she won't believe me anyway. So what's the point? I just realized that I forgot to mention this in my original post, although I said I would explain it later. Anyway, this came up while we were arguing after opening the gift. For some reason, she had started to believe at some point that just because I became pregnant with my first child just a few months after getting married, the baby couldn't be my husband's. I don't understand why she thought that. She claimed it was just a hunch, and, even now, she said she was willing to bet she was right, that I had had an affair and that neither of my children was my husband's. Honestly, I have no idea why she came to that conclusion. I honestly think there is something wrong in her head, because normal people don't behave like that. Anyway, during our discussion, she insisted that my husband should take a paternity test because she was completely convinced that I had cheated on him. That is totally untrue. I just happened to conceive my first child a few weeks before the wedding. And when we found out, it was a happy coincidence. But the child was definitely my husband's. I have never been with anyone else since I started going out with him. Because, as I said, I'm not like Jenny's husband. I think the thing is that she just wanted to create drama and has been trying to do so for a long time, which is why she made up all these accusations. It's all complete nonsense, at least in my opinion. I don't believe a word she says. And neither does my husband, for which I am very grateful, because with the conviction with which she asserts these things, even the most secure man would doubt. But he knows me and he knows who I am, so he never believed her nonsense. I know it may be hard to believe, but irrational people exist everywhere. And I think Jenny is one of them. There is something very strange about her that I can't even begin to explain. She has always had something against me since we were children, and our parents never set limits for her. They have always positioned her against me. So she has never seen me as a sister, only as a rival. Given the circumstances, it is not surprising that she has these feelings towards me and tries to create problems in my life when there are none. It's just the way she is. But I am starting to see everyone clearly now, and I don't think I want anything to do with my family anymore. They are obviously not the kind of people I want around me. They are all incredibly toxic, and I'm fed up. I had promised myself that I would never mention this subject again, but I did. This time it was simply embarrassing, because she can't try to make it look like I was unfaithful. I needed to know that the real cheater was the one she was married to. I brought up everything I had heard about him over the years. How my friends had seen him on dating apps. How he didn't even bother to change his name or hide his identity. He was pretty obvious about it. And I'm not exaggerating. I've heard from multiple people I went to high school with that he had responded to their posts or contacted them on social media trying to flirt with them. They didn't want to communicate directly with Jenny because she generally doesn't get along with anyone. So they contacted me. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is what I know personally. I'm pretty sure he's had encounters with other women outside of his marriage and also affairs at work. I can't prove it, but I'm pretty convinced of it. After she gave the gift to my children, I yelled at her and exposed all of this publicly. Her husband was present and he tried to deny everything. And for the first time, she really questioned him about it and they both started to cry. The situation became quite unpleasant and my parents had to ask me to leave because the couple started arguing and my parents didn't want me there anymore. So my husband and I left with our children, and since then, my parents have insisted that I need to apologize to them. I have explained the whole situation to them, including why I didn't mention this before. But they think it's my fault for bringing up such sensitive issues at a family gathering when everyone was trying to celebrate, especially when my sister supposedly hadn't done anything so terrible. According to them, the gift could have been just a normal present, and I shouldn't have read so much into it. They want me to apologize, but I don't think it's necessary. However, at the same time, I can't help thinking that maybe the gift really was just an innocent gift, that I read too much into it and ended up overreacting. So, am I the bad guy for the way I reacted? Update 1. Hi everyone. Thanks for all the comments. They really mean a lot to me, especially now because I have been seriously questioning my reaction. I just wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do or not. I couldn't help thinking that maybe the gift really was just a gift. My husband had to assure me several times that he didn't consider the gift to be innocent either, given my sister's previous behavior. Jenny definitely intended it to be an insult. With his support, along with the comments here backing me up, I finally came to the conclusion that this had been coming for a while. At some point, I had to stand up for myself, and I'm glad I did. If my parents don't like it, then it's really their problem and not mine. For years, I had allowed Jenny to get away with saying whatever she wanted because I simply didn't want to play her game and create drama, knowing that that's what she would want. A reaction from me that would end up making her the center of attention. That's what she had been looking for so many years. She had been constantly provoking. And I'm glad she finally got the attention she so desperately wanted. It may have been at the expense of her dignity and self-respect, but who cares about that? Definitely not her. Because if she had had at least a little self-respect, she wouldn't have stayed with her husband despite being aware of his infidelities. She has been told many times, probably by other people besides me, and she has never believed it. This time, the only reason she even reacted instead of ignoring it was because our parents were present and it happened in front of everyone. I guess she didn't want to give the impression of being the kind of woman who accepts that her husband cheats on her. At least that's how I interpret it. I can never be sure when it comes to Jenny. I don't understand how her mind works. In fact, I'm not even sure if it works properly. But anyway, that's not the point. My parents have been trying to get in touch with me for the last few days, but I recently blocked them because I really didn't want to get involved in this matter anymore. I was already done with all of this because, honestly, it doesn't directly concern me. This is between Jenny and her husband. I only made the situation public, but instead of talking to the couple about it, my parents decided they wanted to talk to me and have been interrogating me constantly. They thought it was all my fault, that instead of coming to them, I had chosen to talk about it publicly, in front of the whole family. They said that my main objective had been to humiliate Jenny just because I misinterpreted the intention of a gift. I tried to explain to them that I had made several attempts to talk to Jenny about it in the past, even before she married him, but she always claimed that I was jealous and never believed me, even when I tried to show her evidence. Every time I presented her with evidence, she dismissed it as harmless flirting, something she said every husband was entitled to, and she never had anything negative to say about her husband. So what was I supposed to do? But instead of understanding my point of view, my parents started telling me that it was still my fault because when I realized that Jenny wouldn't listen to me or believe me, I should have gone to them. But I decided to keep quiet and let Jenny suffer. The mental gymnastics required to reach such a conclusion. I can't even process it. In any case, they just wanted to make me out to be the villain. In fact, they weren't even willing to believe that I had spoken to Jenny about it, because she had denied having any knowledge of these events. She accused me of making it all up to humiliate her and make her look ridiculous, as if she didn't do that well enough on her own. Obviously, that was a lie, but I couldn't prove otherwise because most of the times I tried to talk to her, I did it in person, and there was no record. So they even refused to believe that I had said anything to her about it. They would only acknowledge it as a possibility to keep arguing, not because they really believed it. After a while, I realized that you couldn't reason with them anymore. They had clearly decided that Jenny was the victim and I was the villain. In fact, for them, Jenny was the only victim and all the rest of us were villains. That was what my parents believed. So if that's what they really wanted to think, they were free to do so. I wasn't going to keep arguing with them, trying to make them see my point of view. I had already wasted enough time with these people. I didn't want to waste any more. For so many years, I had tried to do the right thing because I wanted to be a good person. I didn't want to create conflict. I didn't want to get involved in drama, and I definitely didn't want to be the kind of person who humiliates others for fun. Even now, I didn't do it for fun. I did it because she had insulted me first. But if that's the kind of person they want to make me, someone who seeks drama and attention, someone who just wants to humiliate and insult others, then they are free to do so because I am honestly tired of trying to prove otherwise. Anyway, they don't deserve to be in my life. For years, I had tried to be kind to my family because I thought that would work. But clearly, that's not the case. And I also have my own family to look after. I can't allow them to exhaust me emotionally and mentally to the point where I feel constantly miserable and don't even have the energy to play or spend time with my children. My family deserves better because, unlike my parents and Jenny, they truly love me for who I am. And they don't make me feel insignificant. So I'm done. I'm not going to explain myself to my parents over and over again. They can think what they like. And as for Jenny, I hardly care what happens to her. She has dug her own grave. Now she must deal with the consequences because, at this point, I'm pretty sure everyone here knows that she was blatantly lying when she pretended that her husband's infidelity was news to her. She's not a very good actress. She was trying to appear to be a strong, independent woman who would never tolerate something as terrible as infidelity. But in reality, she is exactly the opposite. A weak person who refuses to accept that her husband is not faithful to her and has spent more than half her life pretending otherwise. And she can continue to do so for longer. I hardly care. Update 2. Hi all. For the last 3 weeks, I have had absolutely no contact with my family as mentioned. I had blocked my parents, and I had already blocked Jenny and her husband. So there was no chance of them contacting me. It was quite reassuring. I have been devoting most of my time to my family, and the rest to work. Several people who were present when I exposed Jenny and her husband have contacted me. They told me it was very brave of me to stand up for myself because even they could see that the gift she gave my children was inappropriate and definitely had ulterior motives. They are normal people who have heard all the jokes and comments that Jenny has made over the years. So they had the same reaction as me. They told me they were glad that I had finally stood up for myself because it was about time. Receiving that validation from them made me feel even more certain that I did the right thing by exposing Jenny and her husband. If it upsets my parents and her, I feel sorry for them. I really don't care. I'm just happy that I did the right thing. A lot of people in the comments called me a doormat or something similar just because I had put up with them for so long. And I guess it's completely justified because I had really allowed them to walk all over me for years without saying anything. Just because I wanted to make everyone happy, I put my own happiness aside and allowed them to treat me however they wanted without thinking about myself. So I guess in a way I definitely had been a doormat for them, but no more. That chapter is closed and will never be opened again. As for what happened earlier today, I got a call from my aunt. She's my father's sister. I answered, but instead of my aunt, it was my father who was on the phone. As soon as I answered, he started yelling at me, saying I had a lot of nerve blocking them after everything I had done and all the trouble I had caused in the family. He said that he needed me to issue a public apology to Jenny and her husband because, according to him, they had solved their problems. And now they want me to apologize by admitting that I had no right to say the things I said, claiming that it was all out of revenge and with the intention of humiliating them. I was at work at the time, so I just hung up without bothering to reply. I was quite annoyed that my aunt, despite saying she supported me in all this, had allowed my father to call me from her phone. I didn't block her, but after I got home from work, I called her and asked her what had happened. She explained that my father had told them that I had blocked everyone and had told her that he wanted to call me to apologize. She was somewhat skeptical at first, but then my father convinced her that he really wanted to make peace with me. Eventually, she agreed to let him use her phone because she knew I would answer if I saw that it was her calling. She was expecting my father to apologize, but instead he started shouting at me. My aunt tried to get the phone back, but he resisted and said all that. I hung up on my own and she thought about calling me back, but she ended up arguing with my father and kicked him out of her house. She was too upset to call me, so she decided to wait a while, and then I called her myself. We cleared things up on the phone and I understood that it had been a misunderstanding on her part, so I forgave her. She clearly didn't mean for this to happen, and it was a mistake that she had learned from. After that, I made the decision that the next time my father or any other family member calls me to upset me, I'm just going to go public with everything I know, and then more people will find out what happened. I'm sure it will be a nightmare for them, because as I mentioned at the beginning, for my parents there is nothing more important than preserving their reputation and the perception of others, and they are willing to do whatever it takes to keep their image intact. I can play that game too, but instead of keeping that image pristine, I'm going to destroy it. I don't care if people associate me with them. I'm past that point. There's only one way to teach them a lesson, and that's to hit back. And I've already decided to do that. I don't want to talk about this too much because I'll just end up getting more angry. So I'll leave it there. The next time they try to upset me, they'll definitely face the consequences. So they'd better not try it. Update 3. As I had anticipated, my parents didn't give up. Although almost a month has passed since the incident, they still tried to contact me last night. This time they got hold of a disposable phone and called me. I answered absently. Once again, my father started shouting at me, even though it's obvious that it won't make me more receptive. I don't understand why he thinks shouting at me is the best way to deal with the situation. I'm not a child, and I'm definitely not going to keep quiet and put up with it. And this time, as if my father wasn't bad enough, my mother also intervened and tried to make me feel guilty so that I would apologize. They kept insisting on this idea of a public apology, and I can't believe they really think I'm going to do it. It's not even a reasonable suggestion to me, but this time I told them that enough time had passed and that I had actually started to feel sorry for what I had done. I assured them that I was definitely going to issue a public apology because I felt bad about everything, and they seemed satisfied enough with that. So I unblocked them on social media and everywhere else so they could see exactly what I was about to post. Within 15 minutes of their call, I posted every single screenshot I had received from other people, the same ones I had shown Jenny in the past and which she had simply dismissed as harmless flirting, to which every husband is entitled in her opinion. I turned off the comments because I really didn't want to know what others had to say about it. I just wanted people to see this and know the truth. I didn't even bother to add a description because the images spoke for themselves. Something like this didn't need any additional explanation. It was shocking enough on its own. Of course, after that, my phone started ringing nonstop because my parents kept trying to get through to me, as did lots of other people, but I didn't bother to answer anyone. I just wasn't in the mood. I had done what I had to do, and now there was no going back. I blocked my parents again because I have nothing to say to them, and as for what they want to say to me, I'm not interested in hearing it. And so far I have received many messages from various people, but I have not checked any of them. To be honest, people can think what they want and believe what they prefer. I don't care anymore. I don't even care if this hurts anyone. I protected the identity of the people who sent me those screenshots, but other than that, I don't owe anything to anyone. Update 4. Hi all. It's been a couple of weeks since my last update, and yesterday afternoon I got a call from my aunt informing me that Jenny has filed for divorce from her husband. It's hilarious the way she decided to announce it on social media. She wrote that she would like everyone to respect her privacy at the moment and not to intrude or cross her personal boundaries. I don't think anyone is going to ask her intimate questions about this. Everyone already knows pretty much why they're getting divorced. I've deleted my post with the screenshots, but I'm sure the news has already circulated widely. As if that wasn't obvious enough, Jenny decided to mention that she had made this decision in light of recent events. As if that wasn't completely evident. I think it's good that this is finally happening. She needs to get away from that man and live her own life. It's sad that their daughter is going to suffer the consequences of all this, but many people grow up with divorced parents and turn out perfectly well. In fact, I think it's better than growing up in a home where your father shows no respect for your mother. Maybe the child doesn't know it now, but in the future she might have found out somehow. So it's better that they separate now. I think Jenny is acting under social pressure. She probably doesn't want to be seen as weak. Now that everything is out in the open, as I mentioned, she inherited my parents' excessive concern for other people's opinions. She worries too much about what others think. But in this case, I think it's beneficial that she cares. If not for herself, at least she is leaving her husband for fear of what others might say. As for me, people have been understanding and have said that I did the right thing once they heard my side of the story. I don't think I will have any contact with my biological family for a long time. I will stay focused on my husband and children. I am happy with them, and I don't want any more conflicts. I think I have had enough drama for the time being.